Have you ever had that feeling, where you're constantly busy, just running around all day, but at the end of it, you feel like you got nothing important done? Like you're stuck on a treadmill, just going nowhere fast? Well, you are definitely not alone. We're going to dive into the story of someone who completely broke that cycle, and get this, how he did it all before 11 a.m. each day.
This right here, this was David's reality. This was his motto. His days would end with him just endlessly scrolling on his phone, totally exhausted but also weirdly wired, clinging to that little bit of me time because it felt like the only thing he had any control over. He was cynical, he was burned out, and he was absolutely convinced that building something for himself while working a 9-to-5 was just a total fantasy. But what if that whole belief, that feeling of being completely trapped, could be shattered into a million pieces? Well, this is that story. It's a journey from feeling totally powerless to becoming incredibly, unbelievably effective.
So what did this trap actually look like in real life? Let's break down the daily cycle that had David completely stuck. And hey, see if any of this sounds a little, familiar.
Okay, so you know the drill. It all started with waking up late, rushing to the office, and then immediately just getting buried under a mountain of emails and meetings. By 6 o'clock, he was completely drained. After dinner and family time, whatever energy he had left just went straight into his phone, scrolling for hours before finally crashing, only to do it all over again the next day. He was always busy, but was he ever actually productive? The answer was a hard no.
But then something happened. A little crack started to form in this monotonous cycle. A small, unexpected event that sparked just a tiny flicker of curiosity in his otherwise cynical mind.
So get this. His cousin quit his job to focus full-time on a business he'd built in his spare time. We're talking just an hour or two each day. The secret, his cousin said, was all in a book called The Effective Executive. Now, David's first reaction was, yeah, right, nonsense, he probably just got lucky. But that little seed of curiosity, it was planted, and he just couldn't shake it. He had to go find out for himself.
So he heads to the bookstore. And of course, the book is nowhere to be found. But he did find someone else. A mysterious man who seemed to know every single book in that store. He called himself Dr. Book, and he could see that David wasn't just looking for a book. He was desperately searching for an escape route.
And Dr. Book hits him with this simple but incredibly powerful question. He asks, would you trade all the money you'll ever make for the last 30 years of your life back? David's answer was instant, and I bet yours is too. Of course, yes, because you can always earn more money, but you can never, ever get back time. And that was lesson number 1. Time is our most valuable, completely non-renewable resource.
Okay, so with that realization just hitting him like a ton of bricks, David was ready for his first real lesson. And it wasn't about fancy schedules or to-do lists. Nope. It was about something much more fundamental. Pure awareness.
Dr. Book's first challenge was actually pretty simple. He said, for 1 week, I want you to log everything. Every single hour, write down exactly what you did. Now, the goal here wasn't to create a new schedule or to make him feel guilty. It was just to see the cold, hard truth of where his time was actually going.
And after a week of tracking, an undeniable pattern just jumped off the page. It was crystal clear. From the second his workday started, his time was just fractured into these tiny, constantly interrupted pieces. The only solid block of pure, uninterrupted, focused time he had was first thing in the morning. That was it. That was his window. So David had found the when. Problem solved, right? Not quite. A week later, he's back with Dr. Book, and he's feeling even more defeated than before. See, knowing he had the time just made him feel guilty that he couldn't find the motivation to actually use it. The problem wasn't about time anymore, it was about purpose. This is where Dr. Book introduces a game-changing distinction. He explained that most of us, we get stuck focusing on activity. Answering emails, going to meetings, just being busy. It's exactly like running on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're putting in the effort, but you're not actually going anywhere. The key, he said, is to shift your focus to contribution. You have to ask yourself, what impact do I really want to make? That is the fuel for real motivation.
And this little story just illustrates the point perfectly. Someone asks 3 bricklayers what they're doing. The first guy says, I'm laying bricks. That's just activity. The second one says, I'm building a wall. Okay, that's a result. But the third one, the one who's the happiest and the most productive, he looks up and says, I'm building a house for God. That's contribution. That's his why.
So David took this to heart. He really thought about what mattered to him, and he landed on the health industry. He didn't just want to build a business. He wanted to create products that would genuinely, actually help people get fit and healthy. All of a sudden, he had more than just a goal. He had a mission. He had finally found his why.
Okay, so now he knew when to work and he knew why he was working. Dr. Book then gave him the final piece of this whole puzzle, a dead simple habit for how to work effectively. And the strategy wasn't about doing more stuff. It was actually about doing less of the wrong things. First, he had to create a stop doing list to just cut out all the time wasters. Second, an offload list for tasks someone else could handle. And third, the most important step of all, make one single non-negotiable decision. And this was David's one decision. By making it just once, he completely eliminated the need to have that painful debate with himself every single morning. There was no more should I, shouldn't I. The decision was already made. Dr. Book warned him that first week would be brutal, but after that, it would become automatic. So he did it. He made the commitment. He struggled, he pushed through that first week, and he built the habit. So what was the actual result of that one simple decision fueled by his powerful why? Well, let's fast forward 1 year.
A year later, David was a completely different person. He was a morning person. He had quit his corporate job 3 months ago and had built a thriving health business with over 1,000 paying customers. He had actually done the very thing his cynical past self was convinced was absolutely impossible. And then the story comes beautifully full circle. As he's sharing his journey online, trying to inspire other people, he sees a comment. And it's the exact same cynical thought that he would have had just 1 year earlier. But instead of getting angry or defensive, he just smiled. He didn't argue. He just hoped that this person would, one day, find their own Dr. Book to show them what's really possible. He had finally completed the journey from cynic to mentor. And in a way, just by hearing the story, you've kind of met your own Dr. Book. You've been given the keys: awareness, contribution, and effectiveness. So the only real question left is, what are you going to do now?